Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Old Geezer's Diary. I'm Chris. It is Saturday. Wow, so I thought we'd have a Saturday sofa. It makes a nice change to do this. I haven't done anything this week at all, essentially because I've just been damn busy. It's just the way it goes, isn't it? Good morning to you. How are you doing out there? Um, okay, Dan. So today I was thinking about a few things this week. Although I've been up to my ears in stuff like hospitals and friends and family and household arrangements and goodness knows what else. I thought it's time we had a bit of a catch up. So anything interesting that you want to say, you're hugely welcome to say. I hope you can hear me properly because I'm doing something different today that actually kind of enables me to do a better looking show without kind of quite so much graft really. There you go. See what you think, but let me know if you can or can't hear me. I really need to know that. It's one of those things that you can or can't tell, isn't it? But there you go. Okay, so what are we looking at today? Well, I think we're going to look at a couple of topics that really kind of, I don't know what you'd say, really. They kind of interest me. And I'm just going to, that's it, make things look a bit better. That's it. The trouble is, when you do this on your own, you have quite a lot of work to do. And now I'm finished for a moment, so we can get on with it. What I wanted to talk about today was we hear from the government and we hear from people all the time who are telling us, I think you'd say they're telling us a story because they want us to believe some things and not believe other things. And they want us to actually go along with those things, really. They want to feel that they're right. But quite often they're wrong. So, what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the NHS and bed blocking, and I want to talk about the other thing that kind of goes on to that, which is older people's housing. There is a big issue with both of those things, and the first one I want to talk about is bed blocking. Hospital beds, as we know, cost an enormous amount of money to actually run and operate. So if you have someone in hospital, they cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds every day. I don't know the figure, but they cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds every day to actually keep them in hospital, whether they need medical attention seriously or whether they are really fit to be discharged but have nowhere safe to go to. So why can't we bring back a couple of older ideas that would allow people to have a better, really a better recuperation and allow hospitals to get on with their job of looking after the sick and poorly? What do you think? I mean, from my point of view, I think it would be relatively cheap to put people into effectively a care centre, like, for instance, we used to have with convalescent centre at the Bartlett at Felixstowe. Let me, excuse me, I've got an itchy nose. At the Bartlett, one of my aunts was at the Bartlett for a few weeks because she wasn't able to go home, 2 or 3 weeks, I think, at one point. And she didn't get a lot of care, in inverted commas. She got a bit of help with her living. She was on a women's ward. There were about, I don't know, I think that this is going back a long way, don't forget. I think there are about 20 women's beds and probably 20 or 30 men's beds, I don't know. And there were two separate wards, as it were. And they didn't get what you would call nursing care, but they got looked after to a degree. They got helped with a bath or a shower if they needed that. They got food and they got looked after. And it had to be a lot cheaper than keeping them in hospital beds, where in reality, they got dealt with by people who were working effectively way below their pay grade. So nurses who are, let's face it, they're important, well-paid people. Well, no, not well-paid maybe, but they're important people who get a better wage. Whereas what they really needed there was really assistance, just people who are effectively carers who do a damn good job and look after the people in their care, but don't really need to have a great deal of nursing skills. I think at that time in the Bath that there were one or two proper nurses on every shift, so that if anything went wonky, they could deal with it. But what happened beyond that, I'm not sure. But that kind of thing is something, couldn't we go back to a proper convalescent care situation where we had low cost or low operating cost accommodation for people while their proper care at home is set up or resolved, or their house is resolved, or their home is sorted out, so that they can live in it comfortably, safely, and sensibly? What do you think? It's all very well for me to kind of sit here preaching away at what I think. Well, what do you think? I'd love to know what you think about that. Would it be a good idea to go back to the day in which we had people being looked after, not being nursed, not having any medical attention in absolute terms at all, apart from maybe having their pills doled out? What do you think? I'm convinced that something like this could actually work really well. Well, my goodness, Marion Little, you can't say things like that. Perfect. It's not perfect because the trouble is getting the bloody politicians to do it, isn't it? Getting politicians and management to do these things, because it involves spending more money when you start off, but eventually it saves you money. Okay. The second topic I want to talk about, you're welcome to come in on any of these topics. For goodness sake, please do. But the second topic I want to talk about briefly is housing for older people. Now, I think that's a big issue, because I think there are a lot of people who would like to have a small, simple home, and yet they have a great big house. And if they have a small, simple home, then they're required to pay huge sums of money for it. Why can't we have some rental accommodation, maybe by a housing association? Why can't we have some rental accommodation, maybe owned and built by housing associations, that older people can rent for the duration? Let's be honest and say, in many cases, older people pass away 4 or 5 years after retiring, or maybe 10 or 20 years after retiring, or maybe 10 or 20 years after wanting to sell their big old 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house and get a small place that suits their actual needs. Why can't we do that? Why can't we actually have smaller rental homes available exclusively for older people, never for sale, just for the duration of their lives? Now, they may live a long time, doesn't matter. But a short time or a long time, a rental home is ideal for many older people. We have the money to pay for it, because either we get benefits, or we have savings, or we have the sale of our previous house. I live with Dot, and this flat is Dot's flat. Exactly right. I have to say that I'm kind of reading comments at the same time. I'll come to those in a moment. But this kind of thing would enable older people to pay their rent, because we'll have the proceeds for a house, you'd have savings, you would have that kind of stuff, or else you'd have benefits that would help to pay for your rent. And because it would be with a housing association or similar, then it wouldn't have to be with a private landlord who might want to make a lot of money and might want to kick you out. What do you think about that one? Can we get something going on this living a better life for older people? Because we damn well need to, I think. Let's now go and have a look at what someone was saying. This is Marion Little. A large outlay at the beginning, but would help with much of delayed discharges. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is the one, Marion, that we've got to think about. We've got to think about how older people live their lives to the best of, or to make the best of, all the other facilities. So in other words, if we built, say 100 one-bedroom flats, 1 bedroom, 1 sitting room, 1 small bathroom, 1 small kitchen, we built 100 of those in every council area every year. Excuse me. The cost will be minimal, because they're small flats, and the rental cost would therefore be minimal, and older people could move into them safely and securely, and know that they're paying a fair rent to a housing association or whatever, and then they would be secure and comfortable. And when the time came for them to move from that into more assisted accommodation, if you like, then that could be arranged. The other thing that it would do is release some proper houses, bigger houses, into the market, because people could actually move from a 3-bedroom house that they couldn't keep up properly, probably afford it, no problem, but they could move from that into a smaller flat that they were going to move from eventually. And when they passed away or when they became ill or whatever, that flat would then be released for another old person. It would work. And it will work so simply. Why can't someone like the Labour Party or the Tories, I don't care who takes it up, why can't one of those take it up? So let's say what we're going to do is this, I think, is say, let's do a bit more, not campaigning, but let's do a bit more talking about how older people could have somewhat better lives, how we could help society in general by using these two ideas. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget that this video is online for eternity from here on in. Not really. This video is online for a fair old while after we've finished it. And so if you have views on what I've said, go back on it in a minute. But if you have those views on what I've said, then we will carry those forward and discuss them more. Okay, so let's talk about what we've talked about today. One is provide some sort of low cost, limited care accommodation for people who are waiting to get a care plan installed at home, who are effectively people who are bed blockers. If you took 100 of those out of the system every few weeks, then you would have beds coming free in the NHS. End of story. This isn't complicated. Okay. Part 2, we're talking about accommodation, smaller, cheaper rental accommodation for old people who can look after themselves to a large degree, but don't need great big houses. There is nothing available. If I went out of this place now, which Dot owns, if I went out of here and said I need somewhere to live, rental, I would have extreme difficulty in finding somewhere a reasonable price that was small enough for what I wanted. Interesting, isn't it? This place belongs to Dot. When anything, God forbid, if anything happens to Dot, then if she needs to go into care, this place will help to pay for that. And also anything that's left will pass on to her daughter, which is right and proper. I have enough savings to rent a place for possibly the rest of my life, who knows? And from my point of view, there is nowhere that I'd fancy. You know, we need some small accommodation units that would cater for older people, that would be rental only, so that when you pass away, someone else could take on the rent, another old person, releasing loads of houses into the market. What do you think? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, I'm going to look down at my screen now and say, where can I find the bit that I want to say? There we go. This is the bit that I want to see. Let's go to that one. And we'll say thank you very much for watching this little show, if you have been. If you're watching on catch up, I'll be delighted to hear from you. I do keep an eye on everything that's said in the way of comments. If you agree with these comments, I'd love to hear from you. If you don't agree with these comments, I'd love to hear from you. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezers Show and the Old Geezers Diary, and we'll be back again with you soon. Okay, let me say, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again.